Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today we are finally going to be talking about Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series, and if you have been following me for a while, you have probably been long awaiting this, and I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting. Throne of Glass, for some reason, has taken me so long to get through, and I don't know why. I feel like the back of my mind, I just really want to savor this series and make it really last. Kingdom of Ash was just released and it made me want to get back in again. So here we are with a Empire of Storms book talk that has been long awaited. Thank you all for having enough patience in me to be waiting for this video. I appreciate you so much. So there's not much I can say that is non-spoilery about this series. I have book talks up for books 1 through 4. They steadily get longer the farther I get into the series, and I'm sure this one's gonna be no exception. So if you want to know more about it, I will leave all of those linked down below. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go straight into spoilers and straight into what I thought. So if you have not read this book already, go ahead and click away, unless you wanna be spoiled. But if you are ready to begin, then let's go. I don't even know where to start with this book, to be completely honest. We'll just start at the beginning and just go through the book. I know so many of you have already read this already. I'm gonna do this anyway. So we start out where Queen of Shadows left off. I think a few months has passed, or a few weeks maybe, and it is Aelin, Rowan, Aedion, Lysandra, Evangeline, Fleetfoot. I literally just put, the gang is hanging out, trying to get to Orin, waiting for these lords to meet them. By lords, I mean the people like Ren Allsbrook, I think, and Lord Darrow, and whoever the heck else who did not recognize Selena's right to the throne. Selena, I'm calling her Selena, oh my god. So she's gotta go on this big journey to try to prove to them that she can gather enough army and resources and things to be the queen that she truly has the right to be, I guess. That's kind of where this whole thing starts off. The one thing that I want to get to before anything else, because I've had such a strong opinion about it these past few books, is Rowan and Aelin. In my Heir of Fire book talk, I despised them together. They were Karanom, okay? They were friends. They were able to put their magic together and use off of one another and whatever, but I was so against them being romantically involved. Queen of Shadows, it tilted a little bit. It was happening sort of slowly, but also kind of out of nowhere that I wasn't sure how to feel about it. And in this book they just went all out. So from the very beginning, they're basically together. You know, they're making out, they're kissing, they want to have sex, all this stuff. Even at the end of this book, I just there's something about their relationship that I just cannot get over a small hurdle for. I think it's because Rowan's a bajillion years old and Aelin's literally 19. We know that they're mates, okay? They're meant to be. They're gonna be endgame no matter what. But there are times where I'm willing to put that aside because they're super cute together and they're doing cute things and they like each other and it's adorable. But then there will be parts in the books where Dorian's well, he is a warrior honed to fight battles and to lead armies, and he's been doing this for hundreds of years and centuries. And I'm yeah, so why is he with a 19-year-old? But once we find out what happened with Rowan and his previous mate, I think that's what was stopping me the most, was the fact that he already had a relationship, he was already married, he was already going to have a child. It just seems weird that he would get with a 19-year-old. Anyways, okay, off of that tangent now. The immediate next scene is basically Manon and the witches coming to Rifthold to ransack the town and to take them over, and my first thought is, God, no, do not take my baby Dorian. Dorian has been through enough. Just let him live and learn how to use his magic. But man, Dorian does some stuff in this book that just we will talk about later. You know, the witches ransack Rifthold, everything's going to hell. Dorian is about to be taken by a yellow legs witch. When Manon all of a sudden comes in, she ends up saving Dorian. Now this is the same time when Rowan barges in and he tries to save Dorian, but they're all kind of working together. I was just cheering the whole time. I absolutely love Manon. I love her chapters so much. I know some people think differently or have in the past. I freaking love her, and I love her relationship with the Braxos, and to be quite honest, I actually do like her relationship with Dorian and how that progresses in this book that we will talk about later. I just love her so much. So this whole scene was so great. Granted, Rifthold being ransacked and taken by Erewhon, less great, but still, the things that happened top notch. We're gonna take a little detour from the main characters of the book and go off onto this tangent that we seem to have with Aelin and Lorcan the entire time. When I first started reading these chapters, I obviously remembered who Aelin was. Aelin, I don't know how you pronounce it. But immediately I was like, who the actual F is Lorcan? Because remember, it's been a year since I read Queen of Shadows. I don't remember anything. It took me a while to realize that Lorcan was a part of the original cadre, I guess is how you say it. He was part of that. His like magic is that of death. He's been blessed by Hellas. He's got all this like dark mysteriousness about him. He and Aelin, I loved their chapters, and you knew something was gonna happen between them at some point because just all of this stuff just kept happening. They start off, they're running from Morath. Well, really, Lorcan is trying to get to Morath so that he can get the weird key because he thinks he has the weird key that he stole from Aelin, but they ended up tricking him and giving him the ring instead. I don't know. Anyways, he's trying to get to Morath. Aelin's trying to get away from Morath. He ends up hunting her. They find this like Ilkin, which but in the beginning, like their chapters were kind of like, you know, I would get to that chapter and be like, oh, I want to read something else, but I was just kind of dealing with it as they came, and then slowly but surely I started really liking their chapters, and it just got to the point where I was super excited to read them, and I was so looking forward to the moment where they collided with Aelin and her group, because that's what Aelin was looking for. Okay, back to the witches. So Manon ends up killing that Yellowlegs witch in Rifthold to save Dorian. The price that she has to pay for killing the Yellowlegs witch is the death of her second Asterin. Asterin, who, by the way, fell in love with a human and then had a stillborn witch, and her grandmother, Manon's grandmother, burned her and branded her and kicked her and just beat her up and did horrible things to her. Now they're gonna kill her. This is the turning point for Manon. Ever since that moment when she saves Dorian in Rifthold and he's like, when you're ready, come find me. And I just was waiting for the ball to drop for Manon to just say, excuse my language, but fuck this, and just leave the witch clans because they are horrible. They're horrible, they're mean, their rules don't make any sense, they're hellbent on tradition. I hate them. So when she took that, what was it, a hatchet or a sword or whatever she had that she was getting ready to kill Asterin with, and she turned and she whacked her grandmother and they started fighting, I literally started cheering in my bed. I was like, hell yes, let's go, I want more of this. Manon is such a badass. So we're gonna go back to Aelin and Aedion and Lysandra. They deviate from Rowan. Rowan is saving Dorian. They are gonna get to Skull's Bay. Aelin and Aedion and Lysandra are trying to get to Skull's Bay too, but they are getting to this temple, the Ilium Temple, I think. They take that back from a Darlin rule, they ransack that, they recover that. That is going to be like their bargaining chip to get Rolfe to join their army with the Mycenaeans, who we thought had been long forgotten, but apparently have just been hiding secretly underground this entire time. But they make it to Rolfe, and I was so looking forward to this scene so much, because we know Rolfe from the Assassin's Blade, and he only knows Aelin as Selena Sardathian. So I knew as soon as he saw her, he was going to think that she was Selena and he wasn't gonna know who she really was. And it's, those moments are the best to me, those moments where things are revealed and the person is so shocked and it's like such a big thing. I live for those moments. So that part in this book was the absolute best. But before we get to that point, so Rowan and Dorian end up showing up first in Skull's Bay, and they end up talking to Rolfe, and it turns out that Gabriel and Fenris, who are also part of the cadre, they are in Skull's Bay, and they have gotten orders from Maeve to find and kill Lorcan. When I was reading, I honest to God forgot these guys existed, and as soon as they came back, I was like, oh shit, Aedion, because Gabriel is Aedion's father. And Rowan ends up using that as a bargaining chip to get them to help Aelin's cause. I love their just conniving attitudes in this book. They go into Rolfe's office and Aelin is just sitting in his chair, you know, lounged up, propped up. She's like wearing her Selena facade. She's got like the whole attitude that goes along with it, and it's so great. And Rolfe is getting so incredibly pissed. That part was great. The part that made me like really uncomfortable though was when she was talking to Rowan and Rowan was pretending not to know her. She was like, you I'd like to get to know. And then he goes, sorry, I'm taken. And she's like, oh, she must be a wonderful, beautiful, amazing, creative, amazing, like however many adjectives she uses, woman to be with you. It was cute, but it was also like borderline just too much. Like, just take it down a notch, you guys. Aelin talked to Brannon when she took back that Ilium temple. He told her that she needed to go find a lock in the salt, stone, sand, marshes, whatever they're called, I can't remember, in Isleway. Apparently this lock is supposed to take the 3 weird keys and lock them up and send Erewhon and I guess the gods back to wherever they came from. In addition to that, Maeve apparently is also sailing her armada to Isleway, and Erewhon's forces are in Melisande. So, something I love about this story up until this point is that people are so underestimating Dorian. Like, yes, he has his raw magic, which lets him kind of wield whatever magic that he wants, which makes him powerful enough, but people kind of underestimate him as the prince boy, the boy who's been catered to his whole life. But he's so cunning and conniving and smart, and I really, really like that about him, because there are points in time where you need to be political with this. And yes, Aelin can be political, but Dorian has been raised on this his whole life, so there are times when he's just so underestimated and he helps out so much. I seriously love it. At this point in time, I think Aedion and Lorcan had made it into the caravan that they were going to take over the river to get into Adarlan, I think. But in the midst of all of that I really didn't care about, there was a line where Lorcan was talking to Aelin about her uncle and what he had done to her. There came a point where Aelin was talking about the chain that her father had used to chain her up and turn her into a slave, and Lorcan asks, "What chain?" And she goes, "When you kill my uncle, ask him yourself." I love her. She's so badass. She is also one that somebody will underestimate. The moment where Aedion meets his dad, meets Gabriel for the first time, is so great. Aedion's mom was so afraid that Maeve was going to call on Aedion because he is Gabriel's son to serve her and to serve the blood oath. So she basically ran to Terrasen, which is why Aedion has been raised in Terrasen. So Gabriel didn't even know that Aedion existed. Aedion is so pissed at him. Because of him, his mom ended up dying. And that moment where he just tells him off and Gabriel can't do anything but just stands there and take it. So good. So this Skulls Bay fight scene was something. So Rowan and Aelin go and like combine blood or whatever, and they bind their magic together because there is a giant Volley army that's coming toward them. They have these giant sea wyverns that are going to attack. It's this big thing. So they all get together, they bind their magic so they can have a huge well of magic. But Aelin doesn't realize that she's wearing the weird key, or she does and she just doesn't tell anybody. So when she ends up pulling from her magic that she's been digging deep into the well of for the past few days, the goddess Diana of the hunt ends up taking over her somehow, and then turns her fire into moon fire, and then is about to decimate all of Rolfe's land, basically, rather than the Volley. Super confused as to how that happened. The part where Rowan threw himself in front of Aelin I loved it so much. I think in the end, Rowan, when he's thinking about, Aelin as his mate, after she's already been taken, he kind of thinks about how he threw himself in front of her at that moment, and he couldn't have done that had he not really known deep down that she was his mate. A person wouldn't do anything to not kill their mate. And so by throwing himself in front of her, she was able to awaken and was able to turn the moon fire or the fire or whatever it ended up being on the Volley instead. So that was a really cool moment that kind of foreshadowed. This battle also made me really anxiety ridden and anxious because Lysandra ended up taking on the form of a sea dragon, which, if we're gonna go back to what we have learned, the Mycenians will only return, legend has it, if the sea dragons return. So when Lysandra turns into a sea dragon, they see that and they're like, holy shit, we need to help out. Lysandra really caused me a panic attack in this scene because I thought for sure she was gonna die and it was going to be the death of me. She ends up kicking the sea wyvern's asses and almost dies for it. Oh my god, when Aedion tells Lysandra that he is going to marry her and that she's going to be his wife and that she cannot die because of that, I melted a little bit. And he just deserves a good person. He deserves a good time. Aedion has had it rough. Like, Aelin has had it rough, but Aedion's also had it rough. Also, this scene was really nice too, because it was really nice seeing everybody take part in the battle rather than just relying on Aelin to do most of the work. Also, Fenris's constant amazement in Aelin is me. Then we have the part right after the battle where we learn a little bit more about Rolfe, and he tells her that the price that he paid to get the map inked onto his hands was the lives of his family. So that really made me sad, but that really also really well characterized Rolfe a little bit more, made him a little bit more human rather than just completely mean and nasty all the time. Okay, can we talk about for a second, after this whole battle happens and after everybody's kind of like settled down, Aelin and Rowan basically just get it on. They're just going at it on the beach, you know, it's a good time. It's a steamy scene, but on the beach, I don't understand sex scenes on the beach. I don't understand sex on the beach. Like, there is sand and there are things like rubbing together, and that just cannot create a very good feeling. I don't want to think about that anymore. Let's move on. Something that I'm really confused about still is the family tree. They call on Elena with the Eye of Elena, and she kind of tells her stuff about Mala, and they end up finding out that Aelin is related to her, but I think Dorian is also related to her in a way. Confused. One of my favorite parts of the entire book is when they are setting sail for Isleway. They are going from Skulls Bay to Isleway to find the stone marshes, to find this lock, and they're on the ship, and all of a sudden they see this black thing approaching them. It basically crash lands in the water, and it's Manon. Oh my god. Nabraxos took her and she said, find somewhere safe, bring us to safety. And he found Aelin and Rowan and Dorian, and it's the best. Like, I knew this was gonna be the book where everybody kind of came together and everything happened, but man, everything happened. The stone marshes is a freaking weird scene. We learned from Aedion and Lorcan's chapters that there is an Ilken army coming for them. So Aedion and Lorcan start running. And they eventually meet with Aelin and her gang, who are about to stand off against these Ilken. Now, the way that Rowan finds out and tells everybody about these Ilken is still so strange to me, because he basically flies in hawk form, looks at the army, comes back and says, there's an army coming. And somebody goes, how many, or something, and he goes, 500. And I'm like, how in the fucking world do you know that it's 500 Ilken? Like, exactly to a T. So they can feel Aelin's power coming. Lorcan and Aelin hit the deck. Lorcan basically shields her from everything, and Aelin just lets loose, and they basically kill all of these Ilken within a matter of like 20 minutes, not even. Lorcan and Aelin get up, they slowly move toward Aelin. Like, this reunion is just so, like, I almost started crying during it, because when Aelin and Aelin meet, the first thing that Aelin says is like, your mom helped me get out, and I will never be able to repay you for that. Like, that kind of thing. And I just immediately started like breaking down because it was so emotional. And of course, Aelin has to go, you know, the last thing that your mom said to me was to tell you that she loves you so much and that she's so proud of you. And I was just like, the tears, the crying, I couldn't. So it turns out the lock that they thought was a lock that was in the box ended up being a witch mirror. Also, they kept mentioning Baba Yellowlegs and her witch mirrors and stuff, and if I had known that this Baba Yellowlegs would be so important 5 books later, I would have paid more attention, but I know nothing about Baba Yellowlegs other than that Selena killed her, so that's all I got. So I knew, ever since Queen of Shadows, when Erebin came back, I knew that the characters in the Assassin's Blade were eventually going to make an appearance. Or why would Sarah J. Maas write the Assassin's Blade to not have half of these stories make any impact later on? You know, Rolfe came back, Erebin came back. I was just waiting, just biding my time waiting for the moment when Ansel of Briarcliff would come back. I don't remember what she did. I just remember hating her guts. So I was just biding my time waiting for her to come back. And when they get out of the stone marshes and they see this army and it's Ansel leading it, I was not expecting that. That is the last place that I thought they would find her. Now they're like besties and they drink wine together and it's just a good time. Turns out this entire time, Ansel's army has been sacking Melisandre's army, I think is what happens. And then she finds out that Maeve has been setting these fires to Isleway, the villages of Isleway, and blaming it on Aelin to rally people to be against Aelin or something, but it's also so that she can weaken her power more and more for the moment where she comes and she attacks, and that moment just is seared into my brain forever. Before we get into the ending that I just don't want to have to think about yet, let's talk about Dorian and Manon, because I had told you guys in the beginning of this book talk that I was not against them, and it's true. I'm not against them. And Manon is like 100 years old, right? She's immortal, so she's 100. And Dorian is, again, like 19, 20. So it's a weird relationship, especially because she's a witch and has like iron teeth and nails. It's a strange relationship. Ever since Sorsha died, he's like, you know, humans are breakable. Like, I need somebody who's going to like not break on me again. And so apparently he's found solace in Manon. I don't hate them as much as I despised Rowan and Aelin in the previous book. I don't know. They kind of like weird me out a little bit, like especially in that scene where they did end up getting together. The one thing I think that weirds me out the most is that Dorian to me has always been considered like this little puppy. Like, he's like, ever since Heir of Fire, when he got that like collar put on him, he's been this little puppy who's been trapped and who has not been able to say anything, and who's, you know, had the love of his life supposedly taken from him and all of this stuff. All of a sudden, Dorian is not a puppy anymore. He's a man. He's a man who is going after Manon. Dorian has always been puppy, but now he is a man. But I always forget that Dorian was such a womanizer before the series even started, and now he's turning into that again. So I just keep forgetting that that's where he came from, but I guess it shouldn't be that surprising then that this is happening, but still, I mean, it's still a little weird. So they get out of the stone marshes, they're sailing back, and they run into Maeve's fleet. Maeve had this plan all along. She was going to set these fires. She was going to bide her time after she got out of the stone marshes, because Aelin would have spent all of her power. She would basically be weak and powerless, and Maeve was going to attack at that moment. So Aelin and Manon go disappear into the witch mirror to find out why this mirror was there, why they needed to fetch it, what they have to do. Rowan, in the meanwhile, goes to each of his cousin's ships that are in Maeve's armada, and he begs them to turn on Maeve and begs them to help them because of all of this stuff that he just explains everything, explains the entire story, all that they've been through, and begs them to consider. Aelin and Manon go into the witch mirror and they start seeing these memories and these past events that have happened through Elena's point of view, and we get a scene with Nehemia, who we haven't seen since book 2. Knowing the entire time that Nehemia had known that this was going to happen, had known that she would have to sacrifice her life in order to get Selena to come to terms with herself and realize that she is, you know, missing Terrasen Queen, it just like broke my heart in two. So it turns out that Elena stole the Eye of Elena, which ended up being the lock that they had all along, to lock Erewhon in a tomb. Rather than letting Brannon use the lock as his original plan to seal the weird keys, to send Erewhon and the gods back, and to give his own life in return. She takes that from him. The Eye is now powerless. There's nothing that they can do. Erewhon is going to eventually come back, and the people who are there in the future are going to have to deal with him. So Elena gets a curse put on her that says, you know, at some point in the future, an heir of Mala Firebringer is going to have to give his or her life in order to send Erewhon and the gods back. In return, Elena is going to have to help one of her heirs in the far future die, basically, is what's gonna happen. That is Elena's curse. And it's there that we realize what is going to have to happen at the end. Whether that happens, I don't know. Some of you will know because you've already read Kingdom of Ash, but this is as far as I know, having read this book at this point. We find out that either Aelin or Dorian will have to give their lives to send Erewhon and the Vogue and the gods back. Then we find out, on top of all of that shit that just happened, Aelin basically died when she was little. When Terrasen was ransacked by a Darlin and Aelin was, you know, floating through that frozen river in the middle of winter, Elena was following her, was urging her to keep going because she knew that this little girl was going to have to die for the good of the world. But Aelin died of frostbite. She died. And Elena brought her back to life. She wasn't allowed to interfere, basically. She was allowed to guide in the right direction and interfere at the end, but she was not allowed to interfere fear with the course of life, I think, as it was. So when she brought her back to life, Elena was then cursed again. And at that point, when all of this finally ended and Elena finally moved on, she was not allowed to see her family ever again. So she knew what she was getting herself into, but she saw this young girl. At that point, Aelin had enough power to be able to go get the weird keys and to defeat Erewhon right then and there. But she wanted her to live a full life and wanted her to know happiness and know joy. She guided Erebin Hamel over to her, and she knew that although it was going to be a tough life, that she would get to live at least a little bit before she had to do what she was destined to do. And like, as much as Elena is a cold-hearted bitch for screwing them all over way back when with Gavin, imagine not being given that choice. Imagine being told at age like 6, like, hey, you're gonna die for the good of the world, so get up and let's get going. That part just like was so heartbreaking to me. So all of this in mind, Aelin knew from the beginning when Fenris said something like, nameless is my price, which I still don't really understand what that means, but she knew that she was going to have to give her life for this. She knew she was gonna die. It was inevitable. She knew it was gonna happen, which is why she ended up throwing up that night, why Rowan thought that she was pregnant, all of this stuff. She ends up marrying Rowan, marrying him before all of this happens, not only because she loves him, but so that Terrasen can have a rightful king. She's freaking 19, and she's planning for all of this stuff to happen because she knows she's gonna die. I just want to say I would never in my life be able to do that. Never. Ever. On top of all of that, Aelin then concocts this plan with Lysandra that Lysandra is going to have to shapeshift into Aelin, keep the ruse going the entire time. And they had this plan that, you know, Rowan would be the king because he's, you know, Aelin's mate and they've married. But Lysandra would have children with Aedion so that the children would look like Aelin. It's so fucked up, but makes so much sense and is so like smart, but also weird that I'm like, don't really know how to feel about it. So the whole battle commences against Maeve. Rowan's cousins turn against her. They've got their armada of ships. They're just fighting. Abraxos returns finally after Manon sent him off, comes back with the 13. Aelin and Manon end up getting out of the mirror and they end up getting sent to the beach where Maeve is waiting. And this is where we find out all of the shit that Maeve has done to get to this spot. I'm like getting chills talking about this because this part like threw me for the biggest loop ever. So she tells us all how she knew that Rowan and she were going to be mates. She saw this somehow. She had all of these plans for them, but Rowan came into the world and she was just waiting for the moment where Aelin did. When Aelin finally came into the world, Maeve wanted her mom to bring her over so that, you know, she and Rowan could meet or whatever and her plan could get put into place, but Aelin's mom was totally against it. So Maeve concocted this whole plan. She made Rowan believe that Lyria was his mate, got her pregnant, and then killed them both to make Rowan this like mean, horrible, you know, grief-ridden person so that he would end up joining her cause and would take the blood oath. And then when Aelin did eventually make it over, she would do whatever it took to get him away from her, which would then give Maeve the leg up. But of course that didn't happen that way because Rowan and Aelin hated each other in the beginning and it was all of this stuff happened where they were able to get around that. It like literally gives me chills thinking about that. And this is just a book and none of this is real, but like it gives me chills. Okay, so then on top of all of that, she takes Aelin and makes this guy Cairn whip her like she was whipped in Endovier and locks her in a iron coffin, puts an iron mask over her face and iron manacles and neck brace and puts her in an iron coffin and just sails away. And I'm sitting here like, what the actual hell just happened? Aelin gave Manon the weird keys so that she didn't have them. She got Maeve really worked up so that Maeve didn't think to remember to get the weird keys. So we still have that leg up over her in this, at the end point of this book. Manon has the weird keys, but Maeve has Aelin. So we've both kind of got a split plan in this situation. God, all of that just threw me for the biggest loop ever. Where we end with this book. Dorian goes with the witches to find the last Crocans to raise an army to work with Aelin so that they can stop Erewhon. And in the process, they're also going to be looking for the last weird key. Lysandra, who is now posing as Aelin as their plan was supposed to work, goes with Aedion, who is totally against this plan, as am I, and takes Ilias and Galen to Terrasen. Like I said, I was expecting all of the characters to show up from the Assassin's Blade. We had Ansel, we had Erebin, we had Rolfe. I have been waiting for Ilias to show up this entire time, and in the very final, like, 10 pages, he finally shows up, and I was not expecting it, and I, like, just literally started, like, cry laughing because all of this had happened, all of these events and all of this bad stuff had just happened. Aelin had just been taken away in an iron coffin, and then all of a sudden, Galen shows up with the Wenlin army, and Ilias shows up with the assassin army, and I'm just... What? What the actual hell? Lysandra posing as Aelin, Aedion, and the rest of the Whitethorns, they all go to Terrasen. They're preparing in Terrasen, they're going. So you have Rowan, Aelin, Lorcan, and Gabriel, who are all going to try to find Aelin. Okay, also before I end this, I just want to say, like, what does Aelin think she's gonna do? Like, you've got Rowan, Lorcan, and Gabriel, these super powerful guys, and then you've got Aelin. I really want to know how she's gonna, like, hold her own in the next book. I'm so excited to just see that, if anything. After an hour and 10 minutes of footage, my blood is pumping, my heart is racing, and I am ready to start reading Tower of Dawn to know where Kale has been this whole time, so that I can get to Kingdom of Ash and find out what the hell is going to happen, because I am so... like, my head is everywhere right now. I have the chills. I am sweating at the same time. I am, like, just so... I don't have words. Empire of Storms, everybody. Like I said, if you've been waiting for this for long enough, thank you for your patience, and thank you for waiting, and thank you for continuing to search for it in the description bar so I can feel absolute guilt every time I type in my name and see Empire of Storms as the first search result come up. And thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. I truly appreciate it. Appreciate you listening to all of my thoughts and my feelings, and for listening to the entirety of this book be told back to you after a year or two after it's already been released. Talk to me down below. Let me know what you think. Don't spoil me for the next book. Please, God, please do not spoil me. I have been trying so hard to keep away from spoilers. I'm surprised I wasn't even spoiled for this one, but please don't spoil me. But talk to me about this book, about what you think. What characters do you like? What characters do you not like? I really, really want to know. So guys, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later. Goodbye!